Good morning. You're watching Sky News. NASA has successfully launched its long-awaited Artemis II mission to the moon. 4 astronauts are now in space on the furthest journey from Earth humans have ever attempted. It's the first crewed mission to fly to the moon since Apollo 17 in 1972. Here's the moment the journey began.
10, 9, 8, 7. RS-25 engines lit. 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis II now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Good roll pitch.
Roger, roll pitch.
Houston, now controlling the flight of integrity on the Artemis II mission around the moon.
Integrity, AMT high.
AMT high.
On time, passing 30 seconds into the flights. Integrity passes the alternate beacon. Target milestone. Mission Control Houston seeing good performance on the 4 main engines at Space Launch System core stage. Integrity, 3 miles in altitude. Traveling more than 1,200 miles per hour.
Let's take you back to earlier in the launch process. The crew began their journey to the launch pad by greeting their families as they left the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building in Florida. The astronauts had been in quarantine for the last fortnight there to prevent them from getting ill. Now, there was visible excitement from the crew and those present as they said their goodbyes. The crew then entered their spaceship, the Orion, the only part designed to return to Earth. They were strapped in by NASA technicians and then performed checks and readied themselves for the journey into space as the ground control team did their final checks.
For all personnel, this is the NTD conducting the Artemis II launch readiness check. Verify ready to resume count and go for launch. OTC.
OTC is go.
STC.
STC is go.
GTC.
C's go.
MCO.
TO's go.
Safety console.
Safety consoles go.
LPE.
LP's go.
RTD.
RTD's go.
Houston flight.
Houston flight is go.
ROC.
ROC is go.
And CDR.
Crew is go.
Copy that. Thank you, Reed. And Launch Director NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed at this time.
This is Victor. We are going for our families.
MS1.
This is Christina. We are going for our teammates.
MS2. This is Jeremy. We are going for all humanity. All right, Charlie, your Artemis II crew is go for launch. Full send.
And in the past hour, NASA gave an update to the press about the successful launch.
NASA is back in the business of sending astronauts to the moon. We have arrived at this point through a sustained effort and national commitment and the work of thousands across the agency, our industry partners, and our international allies. We have certainly been here before. We know the challenges ahead. We have a lot of checkouts to get through before TLI. And when, if all goes well, everything is go, Artemis II will be moonbound. You have our commitment to keep the public as informed as possible on this historic mission. And we will celebrate when we will hold our celebration until this crew is under parachutes and splashes down off the west coast of the United States.
Well, our science correspondent Thomas Moore was in the room and he asked a question.
What were your feelings watching your crew rising above Pad 39B? And do you feel that extra sense of responsibility for the crew as they head further into space?
I certainly felt that it would be, just from, I guess, my perspective in it, that, I don't know, it is far less stressful to be strapped into the rocket than to be responsible for it here on Earth. So I definitely had those feelings quite a bit. But but, you know, you derive a lot of confidence from the process that leads up to this moment. I mean, literally the army of people that came together across NASA, all our contractors, all our partners to prepare for this, every step that leads up to it. This is what I, you know, was really honestly going through my mind through it, is all the testing that goes into it, the integrated testing, the flight readiness review, everything that goes into a flight readiness review. Not to mention you have a truly exceptional crew up there that have been training for years on this. That gives you the confidence to undertake this mission, especially knowing the implications that it is part of a much bigger program. This is America and our partners' return to the moon, and we're trying to do it this time to stay. So, incredibly important mission. Certainly felt the pressure of it, but it was relieved, you know, based on the confidence we have in the team here at NASA and everyone who contributes to it.
Well, before that, Thomas himself witnessed the launch, and this was his reaction.
Wow. I can feel the rumble coming across the water there. Extraordinary sound. The vibrations in my chest. That bright light, the fiery trail. It's crackling. That is the most extraordinary sound. The crackle as the rocket powers off the ground. You can feel it in your chest. And the bright light. It's almost like the sun. That was the most extraordinary sound. That was the most extraordinary sound. The crackle as the fire burst through the engines there. You could feel it in your chest. You can see now that long trail of smoke as the rocket arcs up towards the atmosphere. It lifted off launch pad 39B with a thrust equivalent to 32 jumbo jets, burning 5,500 litres of hydrogen and oxygen every second. Look at that absolutely extraordinary cloud in the bright blue sky. Florida sunset. It's heading towards the east, heading towards space, heading towards the moon for the first time in 53 years. 4 people on board that rocket. It is an extraordinary sight.
And our correspondent James Matthews was watching the launch with thousands of others across the water from Cape Canaveral. He had a chance to gauge the reactions of those who travelled from across the world to be there.
Just the sound, the rumble, the sight, you know, the smoke as it rose into the sky and ultimately disappeared. The crowd here numbered, I don't know, I would say 5,000-6,000 more, you know, ripples of applause, cheering certainly, chants of USA, USA. And, I mean, people were emotional, you know, people who'd waited here hours today, people who'd travelled many hours to get here. And just take a look around, they are sort of drifting away, but still, I think, digesting the moment. The people who have witnessed history, who, from this vantage point, saw it on the horizon, rising up into the sky. Let's speak to a few of the people who were there and are still here. Hi, how was it for you?
It was amazing. I absolutely loved hearing everybody cheer when it was going up. That was pretty cool. There were so many people here.
I mean, people were emotional, I think it's fair to say. Did it get you that way?
It was definitely emotional. It was really cool to watch that. And it's definitely something going down in history for sure.
Tell me, what did you think of it?
I cried the whole time. I didn't want to pick up my phone, so afterwards I had everybody airdropping me their videos because I wanted to be fully present. We sat here for 8 hours, so I wasn't going to like be watching it through my phone screen. I cried the whole time, and he knew I was crying because he was like, she's being quiet. She's got to be crying.
So I just let her be. I just had to let her enjoy the moment, so... Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to see it on video, but to actually be here, it was incredible, so...
Tell me why it's emotional.
the most miraculous thing that humanity can do. That is the best thing humanity can do. That is the absolute extent of the science that we have. It is the coolest thing that we can possibly do, and we just did it, and we got to watch it, and
Alison, thank you very much indeed for your time, yeah, enjoy the moment. Nice sharing it with you. Let's just speak to these two guys here. Sir, tell me, we're from Sky News in the UK. We're live.
Oh, hi, Sky News.
What did you think of all that?
It was so cool. It was really fast, though.
Really fast, but moving, I think, for a lot of people.
It seemed to be moving, yeah. Oh, moving. Yeah, it was moving. Yes.
Emotional.
Yes.
It was for some. What did you think, mate?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks very much indeed. The generations were out here, small kids, parents, grandparents, people who've seen this kind of thing before, but not this actual event. Sir, what did you make of it?
A universal event, not just a historic, but a universal event. And I think that most of the people here had an inkling, but not really. We don't really know what the meaning and what the value of all this is. But
quite the spectacle.
No question about that. Thank you. Thank you for recording it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much indeed for your time. Very pleased and honoured to share the moment with you. Thanks very much. That's the mood here, close to the launch site, just across the Indian River Lagoon. Quite the moment for several thousand people here to witness history.
Well, let's tell you more about the Artemis II crew themselves. The 4 astronauts are taking part in the 10-day mission around the moon. The mission's commander is 50-year-old Reed Wiseman, an engineer and US Navy veteran. He launched to the International Space Station in 2014. He spent 165 days in space. His wife died in 2020 and he has 2 children. He's joined by 49-year-old Victor Glover, the mission's pilot. Now, he was the pilot on the first operational SpaceX crewed Dragon flight to the ISS. Having racked up 168 days in space, he's the first African-American and indeed the first person of colour to fly beyond low Earth orbit. He's married with 4 daughters. Now, there are 2 crew specialists. One of them, 47-year-old Christina Cook, once an explorer of the Arctic and the Antarctic. She lived and worked on the ISS for 328 days. She's the first woman ever to travel beyond low Earth orbit if the mission is a success. She lives in Texas with her husband. And the only non-American on the flight is a 50-year-old mission specialist, Jeremy Hansen. Born in Ontario, he's the first Canadian to venture to the moon. Hansen was a fighter pilot in the Royal Canadian Air Force and spent 7 days living and working off the ocean floor near Florida. He's the only crew member to never have been to space. Hansen is married with 3 children. Well, earlier I spoke to Dr. Katie Mack, astrophysicist and Hawking Chair in Cosmology and Science Communication at the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics. She gave me her reaction to the successful launch.
It's a tremendously exciting mission. It's always emotional to see a rocket launch. There's just the power and the achievement of getting into space is tremendously exciting, and the way that it represents how people come together to do something incredible. So it's been immensely exciting to watch this develop and to see how it's been going. It's going great so far, which is wonderful because it's always a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's been awesome.
So you say it's been nerve-wracking. Now, of course, we had a couple of glitches at some point where we weren't quite sure if it was touch and go, whether it was going to go ahead or not. Were you nervous for them when that happened?
You know, personally, I'm always nervous about crewed space flight. I'm always nervous when there are people attached to rockets. It's just natural because these are very hard things that we do as a species. It's dangerous. It's something that, this crew has signed up for it. They have trained for it. They are in very good hands, but things could always go wrong. Space is hard, as they say. So especially with, a relatively new launch system like this, it's only flown once before without crew. So it's, there are things that could go wrong. And so there is always that element of nervousness. But I think that it's very important to try these things, to do these things, to get out there and see what humanity can accomplish.
So when it comes to the fact that, we've done this before, we have sent people to the moon before, what makes this so different from 50 years ago when we were sending people to the moon? Why are we doing this again now?
Well, there are a few reasons. One of the reasons that this whole Artemis program is happening is because the ultimate goal is to establish a longer-term presence on the moon. This is one of the steps toward a lunar base, and then also to develop the technology and capability to, at some point, go deeper into space, to go to Mars. And so a lot of this has been built with that in mind. The Apollo missions were missions to the moon. They were development in some ways for other technologies, but that was the main focus, whereas the Artemis mission has always, from the beginning, been part of a longer trajectory toward a more stable lunar presence and also missions to Mars eventually.
OK, so when it comes to the kind of end goal of this mission, which is about getting to Mars, from a scientist's perspective, what are you hoping that they achieve, discover, learn, not only on the moon, but also in Mars? I mean, you've written a book, haven't you, called The End of Everything? I mean, you look at these kind of vast philosophical, scientific questions about the universe. What are you hoping that they can learn and really some of that knowledge they can bring back?
Well, there's a lot of knowledge that they'll collect along the way, especially with this mission. There's a lot of knowledge about how the human body reacts to being in space. They have a lot better capabilities of measuring what it does to people to be in space, in deep space, outside of the Earth's protective magnetic environment. So they get more radiation. All of that is useful for learning how to go farther. But as a scientist, the things that are exciting to me, I'm excited about the planetary science aspects, the geology, what we're going to learn about the moon, what we'll eventually learn about Mars. But I think also I'm just excited about the exploration aspect that, people are going out there and it's a way of demonstrating that we can do these amazing things. And that to me is very inspiring. We will learn a lot of science. There's a lot of science that can be done with robots, but there's a lot of science that also is much better done with people who can make decisions in real time, who can, be more reactive, more creative than something that's planned years and years ahead of time. So there's a lot of science to be done. But I think that, ultimately this is about humans following our curiosity, following our natural instinct to explore the world, to explore the universe. And I think that's what these kinds of missions are ultimately about.
Now, what's your perspective when it comes to the idea of competition? So just in that NASA press conference, Jared Isaacman, he talked about how actually competition in the 1970s was helpful, and essentially that's coming back now, which is why there is this impetus, in part at least, to have this Artemis mission. And I assume, there's a bit of a kind of a divide perhaps in the science community in comparison to those who might believe competition is helpful, healthy, and pushes people to go further, and perhaps those who feel that maybe competition and therefore perhaps politics slightly get in the way of maybe collaboration across different nations. What's your perspective?
Well, I think there is a bit of a divide in the sense that I think as a scientist, as all scientists, we are constantly doing collaboration. We are always talking to people in other countries because the science is the important thing and we want to work together, and that's how we do science. Sometimes the funding relies on other priorities, and so I think that it's natural that sometimes the people who are in charge of the funding are thinking about things like competition. In my experience, the scientists are not doing that. So there are different priorities on different sides of that equation.